Well, hi there, I'm Noah Bradley. This is Handmade House TV, and on today's episode, we're going to continue our series of the best species to use for construction of your future log home. So stay tuned. Well, all right, this is the third of our episodes on the best species of wood to use when building your log home. And if you can see today, I'm standing in front of a pine tree. And it is a yellow pine tree, which is most common in the area that I live, which is Central Virginia. This species of wood, yellow pine, is available from here probably all the way down to Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, you name it. And matter of fact, the further south you get, the more prevalent yellow pine is, and means the opportunity is there for you to use it in your future log home. Like all the other species of wood that we're mentioning in this series, that pine has its pros and its cons. The availability of pine, the fact that it's there in such abundance, when you purchase a new home built in the stick-built method, chances are a lot of the framing or all of the framing that was used within that home was pine. It's extremely fast-growing wood. It grows very straight, very tall. It gets fairly good size when it's finished, and so it's rapidly available, and it's considered often in the world of log home construction. A lot of the kit homes that you'll see out there are built out of pine because of that. And we're going to go through the positives and negatives of yellow pine. Well, let's go ahead and get started in that. Let's see. We got workability. And I put it, into two categories. Actually, I gave it, on a scale of 1 to 10, I gave it a 7 as far as workability, but I gave white pine or hemlock a 9 in order to work with that. And the reason why I gave it this is that, first of all, when it comes time to working any pine species, very likely you're going to be dealing with sap, particularly when it comes time to remove the bark, and that this sap is just a royal pain to work around. It's just your hands get sticky, your tools get sticky, your clothes get sticky. You generally have to use some kind of solvent in order to remove it at the end of the day. It's just, to me, it's almost a deal breaker just in the sap issues of doing that. And again, if we mentioned in previous episodes about the time of year to cut it down, that the bark comes off of it relatively easy when the sap is flowing, and when it's not, it's a real struggle to get it off of there. And when it comes to actually working it with an axe or whatever else, it works fairly well. It'll definitely pop off in chunks, and you'll be able to make good progress with it. For me, it's a little bit splintery, perhaps. Sometimes it comes off in great shards. Sometimes I can't get as smooth of a nice finish with a yellow pine as what I can with other species of wood. But we'll get to that. So workability is okay. It's pretty good. Rot resistance, it's at the bottom. I give yellow pine 5 and white pine a 6, and that is that it rots. You could cut, say, an oak log and leave it on the ground for a year or two, and it would be just fine. You put a pine log on the ground, and it'll be compost within a year's time. It rots really quickly, and if rot's ever allowed to set in, if you were to rent your home out and see the United States for a couple of years, and there was an issue with water gathering or accumulating, or bugs were to come in or whatever else, within a year or two later, if you didn't address the situation, you would be in a world of hurt. So that's definitely a major issue. And then when it comes to insect damage, I give it a 5, which is really low on a scale of 1 to 10. And that is that bugs just love pine, especially white pine, if you're talking about the wood-boring bees. But a lot of times when it comes to looking at salvaged or repairing a recently built log cabin, a lot of times the ones almost know without getting there that it's going to be a pine cabin. Typically, if you have a pine cabin, you're going to have to treat it. You definitely want to build your cabin up off the air and up off the ground. If you find out in your neighborhood that people are having problems with wood-boring bees, they look like bumblebees, carpenter bees, and but they just love to drill holes in log cabins that are made out of pine. The softer, like white pine, the more prevalent. But even in the yellow pine, that can happen as well. So insect damage is a big one, and I can say that that a lot of the vintage log cabins, I'm surprised there's not more pine vintage cabins out there than there are. The pine cabins that I do find out there are often rotten. It depends upon what area they are and as far as what species of wood, whether or not they're rotten. If you live in the southern states, like down in the deep south, again, the Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, even southern Tennessee or Georgia, maybe South Carolina, there's a lot of species of wood down there with extremely tight grain on it. Where the growth rings are very close together and it's a reddish color to the wood. If you can get that, you're a heck of a lot better off than what you are if you buy, say, your pine here in Virginia. And then the final category is attractiveness as far as it goes. And I gave it on a scale of 1 to 10, I gave it anywhere between a 1 and a 10. That's pretty extreme. I can say that for the most part, white pine and hemlock cabins are beautiful cabins. The logs really mature. You can generally get them wide, big, large logs, and they're beautiful. There's no question about it. Here in the state of Virginia, we don't find a whole lot of white pine or yellow pine. You really need to get high elevation in order to get into that, which means you either need to go up north and perhaps as far as New York State, or you need to get over into West Virginia. You can find some white pine cabins over there. They're gorgeous. But when it comes to yellow pine cabins, again, most of the time today when you're going out, you're finding yellow pine log trees on your property. The graining in it is very wide. It's very loud. If you go to any construction site or look at a sheet of plywood, you can see the wild grain that goes on in it, and so it's not the most pleasing log there is to look at because it's so overdone in new construction that everyone's used to seeing it, and it looks like a wood that you would use to build something, but you would probably cover it over once it got finished. Of course, it will tone down. You won't be able to see that loud graining in it for a long time. You'll see it for years. Early on in my career, when I had so much negative experiences with yellow pine, that I actually developed a lack of appreciation for yellow pine cabins. But it wasn't until I experienced a really nice heart pine log cabin where the individual had actually oiled the logs on the interior of it rather than letting them go to a gray patina. He had oiled them, and it was that tight grain vintage logs like you can still get in some of the southern states or pulled up out of the swamps, or you can find them salvage logs as well. But you got to really be careful. You want heart wood, you don't want any sap wood, and if you do that, it can just make for a beautiful log cabin. So that's why I gave it a 1, because I don't have a lot of great experience with pine. But I can also give it a 10 because I have seen a few really beautiful vintage heart pine log homes. So, and then I guess that's it. And again, to summarize what this whole series is about, is to consider the pros and cons, both sides, of the wood that you have available locally for yourself. If you have wood on your property that you're planning on using, fine, that's great. There's a real feeling about that, about using your own resources in order to build. Personally, I think I've said this before on Handmade House TV, is that I prefer to use somebody else's logs. I will find someone that has logs, sells logs. Loggers are the best people to find. If you can't find loggers, then start talking to your local forestry service about where you can get some logs, and use somebody else's logs and save yours for enjoyment or future use in the future. There's always somebody selling logs, it seems like. Don't try not to focus too much on going to a sawmill. Sawmills sell lumber. They don't really want to sell the logs. They buy logs, they convert it into lumber, and they sell it. So they're not. A lot of them are resistant to selling you logs, and so get your logs elsewhere. So we're about wrapped this up here. Please consider coming over to handmadehouses.com and seeing us over there. If you're interested in building a log cabin, you want minimally at least to sign up for the Log Cabin Academy over there. It's 8 hours of similar discussion as what we're having here today, but I show you step by step the pros and cons, the methods, the hands-on techniques in order to build a log cabin that's as attractive and beautiful and comfortable as what it can be. So we look forward to seeing you here next week on Handmade House TV, where I'm going to share with you the 4th of the most used, most appreciated, most built species of wood to build a log cabin. So until then, you guys take care. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye now.